next speaker.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair McCarty, for inviting me to join you today. I am Debbie Cochran with the Institute for College Access and Success, known as TICAS. TICAS is a research and policy organization based in Oakland, California, and our mission is to improve educational opportunity and outcomes, both nationally and in California, so that more students have access to a quality, meaningful education that leads to a good credential without burdensome debt. So we care about financial aid so much because it speaks to so many different aspects of college access and success. Students who know about financial aid are more likely to apply. Students who receive financial aid, it informs whether they go to college, where they go to college, and also how they go to college, part-time or full-time. Once enrolled, how much financial aid they get informs whether they have time to spend on their studies. And of course, after they leave, how much financial aid they got while in school informs how much debt they're going to have to repay. So we care a lot about this because it is very influential in students' decisions and ability to succeed. Increasingly over recent years, conversations around college affordability, or conversations I should say about college costs and financial aid really keep revolving around the word affordability. But there's not a real good understanding of what it means to be affordable. Frequently people think, well, if something's low cost, it must be affordable. But actually something that's very low cost can be quite unaffordable for someone with few resources, and something that's much higher cost can be quite manageable for someone with more resources. So the handout that's in front of you, called College Costs and Affordability in California, includes the net prices for federal aid recipients at California's public colleges, which, as Hans noted, enroll the vast majority of undergraduates in the state and even larger share of the lowest income students in the state. This is kind of a different way of looking at similar data to what Hans was presenting. So net price is the total cost of college, not just the tuition, but also transportation, living costs, textbooks, minus all of the grant aid that's available to students, grants and scholarships from federal sources, state sources, and institutional sources, all of the money that doesn't have to be repaid. So it's really a statement of how much the student has to pay out of pocket. So what you can see is that for both the University of California system and the California State University system, where we have data across income groups, the net price of college increases with family income. So for instance, at UC, the net price for 1 year of college starts at about $8,800 for students from families with incomes of $30,000 or less. For higher income families, those with $110,000 or more, that reaches just over $28,000. At CSU, this net price, or kind of more the true cost of college, ranges from about $6,700 to $20,000, depending on family income. So, as I said, net price tells you what students are asked to pay, but it doesn't tell you whether it's affordable. So what the other charts, what the other columns on the chart do is translate those net costs into something that relates to the family's income or ability to pay those costs. So what we see from doing that is that the net cost of college represents the largest share of family income for the lowest income families. And it represents the smallest share of income for the highest income families. So that $8,800, which kind of looks like a bargain for UC, it actually represents an expectation that those families with $30,000 or less in income, dedicate about 2/3 of their family income, or their discretionary income, towards college costs. The higher income group, that $28,000 figure, which is much higher, it actually represents 21%. So it's still a very significant share of income, discretionary income, but a still significant but much smaller share than for the lower income families. So from an affordability perspective, when we look at net costs compared to families' ability to pay, the cost of UC for higher income families is actually more affordable than the cost of community college for low income families. So to be clear, I am not arguing that college is easily affordable for any of these groups, but there's a pervasive belief that low-income students are held, they're insulated from college costs because of federal grant aid, state grant aid, institutional grant aid, and that's just not grounded in reality. The facts are that a decreasing share of low-income students in the state receive state Cal grants, and the grants that those students receive have stagnated. So as Chair McCarty was mentioning earlier, for students who meet Cal Grant eligibility standards and move quickly from high school to college and apply by the March 2nd deadline for Cal Grants, those students are entitled to Cal Grants. But all other applicants, the actual majority of Cal Grant applicants, they must compete for one of just 22,500 grants. In 2001-2, there were 4 eligible applicants for each available competitive grant. In 2014-15, there were as many as 17 eligible applicants for each available grant. So put another way, students now have a greater chance of winning in a Las Vegas casino or getting into an Ivy League school than they do of winning a competitive Cal Grant. So using data provided to TICAS by the California Student Aid Commission, we have for the first time been able to look more closely at the students who meet the financial and merit criteria for Cal Grants but are not offered grants because of that 22,500 cap. Among the hundreds of thousands of eligible applicants who did not get grants in 2014-15, more than 160,000 of them had an expected family contribution of 0, meaning the federal government believes that family cannot afford to put a single dollar towards college costs.
I just stopped. Are you reading from your booklet right here?
These are hot off the presses stats,
Okay.
so we'll be happy to send them to you in follow-up.
Thank
Yep,
you.
absolutely. So more than 140,000 of the applicants that are turned away, actually more than half of the applicants turned away, have family incomes below the federal poverty line for their household size. About 24,000 of them were receiving means-tested benefits like SNAP, TANF or CalWORKs, SSI income. More than 20,000 were dislocated workers or had parents who were dislocated workers. More than 28,000 were single parents, and at least 110,000 of them were first-generation students whose parents had no college education. So all of these figures are really critical to understand because the state is projected to need an additional 2.3 million college graduates. That's by 2025, and that's 2.3 million above what we're already projected to have for California's workforce to remain competitive. This means we have to focus our attention and resources on getting students who otherwise wouldn't enroll in college to enroll and getting students who wouldn't otherwise succeed in college to succeed. The research on financial aid and college going consistently shows that low-income students are far less likely to enroll or succeed in college than their higher-income peers, but that financial aid can help mitigate those gaps. Research further shows that the single biggest predictor of college enrollment is whether students' parents went to college, but these are the students that were turning away from the competitive program in droves just because there aren't enough grants. So to target some of the greatest affordability challenges in the state and to improve college access and success, we must help more eligible students get grants. Further, we must continue to strengthen Cal Grant B. Cal Grant B is available to students in 2014-15 with family incomes of up to about $46,000 for a family of 4. And it provides recipients with 3 years of tuition coverage and up to 4 years of an access grant, which allows students to use that to cover non-tuition expenses. After being championed by the Assembly last year, and this subcommittee in particular, that Access Award was increased for the first time in over a decade in the 2014-15 budget from $1,473 to $1,648. Yet the value of this Access grant had already dwindled so much that the grant is still worth just about a quarter of its original value. So increasing the number of available grants and strengthening the Cal Grant B award are the two most important financial aid investments the state can make. And we hope the Assembly Budget Subcommittee takes the opportunity in the coming months to act upon them. Those two recommendations have been endorsed by a very wide array of organizations representing student groups, civil rights groups, social justice, business communities. Improving Cal Grants will improve college affordability for the low and truly middle-income students at all types of colleges across the state, and will provide greater incentives for all types of colleges to enroll low-income students and ensure that they're served well. Thank you for your time and attention.
Ms. Fuentes-Michel.
I want to have the opportunity first to talk about a subject that we talked about quite a bit in the earlier part of this hearing, which is a student's ability to afford college is really reliant on making sure that they fill out the FAFSA, they meet the deadlines, and they follow up. And to the point of improving the follow-up, we lose many students in the process because they don't get their GPA in, which we hope now because of the Ting legislation, that particular issue will be solved, but also because they also need additional help in terms of reading their financial aid letters and understanding packaging. The Commission's going to be having a hearing in April to look at the issue of packaging, and we hope we'll have recommendations for you at that point. Students who are on financial aid typically get letters from the institutions that are admitting them in the month of April, and they have a very short window to make that determination as to what college meets their particular needs in terms of program, academic, and their ability to afford. So again, I'd like to encourage you on the Cash for College and the CalSOAP to take those particular proposals very seriously, because they do impact a student's ability to gain access. The Commission, in brief, and I'm going to try to be short given the time frame here, is looking at 3 issues in terms of improving Cal Grants. One issue before you, and I believe Assemblymember Chavez was speaking to this in terms of the role of the nonprofit institutions in this state. Their maximum award is proposed in the governor's budget to be reduced. And we know, and when you look at the data that's being provided by PPIC and other organizations, the issue of time to degree needs to be factored in to the cost of education. I know from my own personal experience, having one daughter who went and graduated from the University of California and another that graduated from St. Mary's, is that the student that went to UC took 5 years and the student who went to St. Mary's took 4 years. So if you have I have one more student, and to see what that time to degree is, it makes a tremendous difference if you're having to pay for that additional year in college. So I would encourage you to look at the time to degree issue. That also matters in terms of cost. As it relates to the indirect cost of education, our policies in the state focus on tuition and fees, and we do a great job with UC and CSU students. But the lack of increases in federal aid and the lack of work study and other opportunities for students has reduced their ability to afford education at UC and CSU. So the middle class scholarship does play a role in assisting students, and we need to look at the middle class scholarship and look at ways to reform it and improve it. In addition, the Cal Grant B program this year, the legislature enacting legislation last year which provides for a tax credit so that businesses can add funds to our resources available. The Cal Grant B Access Award will be increased this year. We need to do more in terms of publicizing the availability of the tax credit, which was championed by Senator De Leon, to get more money into the Cal Grant B program so that we can increase the grants that go to students in terms of the Access Award. And lastly, to the Competitive Award, which Ms. Cochran, Debbie talked about in terms of that 291,000 eligible students that we receive completed FAFSAs for, get GPAs for, and then can award those students because we only have 22,500 awards. We're going to be providing the committee this week data on those students as well. And I think what you need to know is that these students are very needy. The students that receive the award to date have GPAs of 3.4 on average. They have a family size of 3, and their average age is 32, which means they're likely a working parent, single mom, or 2 parents and a child, but their incomes are averaging $13,000 to $14,000. And so this is one particular area that we need to look at and look at how we can address, because it's been a significant amount of time since we've actually increased the number of available awards, 17 to 1. When we started out, the number was much less, and it was more reasonable in terms of expectations to actually qualify for the award.
Thank you. As far as the competitive grant, and by the way, we are noting that as a potential item to revisit this May when we finalize our budget. Also knowing there's a big bill being heard. I think, was it heard yesterday in the Higher Ed Committee? It's going to appropriations now to increase the competitive award dramatically to 100,000?
Yes.
100,000. Yeah, so certainly I support going above 22,500, which we've been at that same level since 2000 when we created this program. And so even if we just adjusted it for some type of inflation every year, we'd be greatly above where we're at now. So just to educate us, how does it work? I know you say the odds are 1 in 10. Do they literally 1 in what?
1 in 17.
1 in 17, excuse me. Do you pull names out of a hat kind of a thing? Or is there a
No, well,
algorithm that somehow figures
and
it
I
out?
know you remember the old Cal Grant B program because you were involved in the entitlement debate when we initiated the entitlement, I think as a staff person. It's the old Cal Grant B scoring process that was in statute. We took that scoring process. It's a score that students get points for disadvantagedness, for where families are in terms of their educational attainment, income. And the scores are basically calculated, and then we have a cutoff. And the cutoff this year has been around 160, 161. And the students that fall within the cutoff get the award. The students that fall outside of the cutoff don't get the award. And so it's become much more competitive, and many more students in the cohorts that are eligible. So it's really a balance between need and merit, if you will. And it's been a formula that's been in place for decades.
So as the prior speaker noted, we do have a system that acknowledges your income, and if you're below the poverty line, you do get some type of bump on the scoring. But still, your odds are pretty slim. Yeah.
It's really an issue of, if you want to change the weighting, it's an issue of whether you're getting more merit to merit indicators than to income and disadvantage indicators, and the legislature debated it over the years, and that's why we had the scoring system. So it's a question if you want to give more weight to being disadvantaged than you do to the GPA as an example.
Well, a bigger issue too is just the overall cost. A few things. When we created this 15 years ago in 2000, it was somewhat more affordable to attend a UC or CSU or even a community college. And I can't help thinking about, you mentioned the average student, the competitive is a 32-year-old working family, and just on a personal note, I can tell that in the 1970s, my mother was a single mom, 4 kids, had nothing, and she went to community college, went to the CSU system, and eventually went to law school. And but tuition at the community colleges and the CSU system were nothing at community college and very limited at CSU. So that same individual now trying to navigate the maze of college and pay for it is just so daunting. And, compared to other states, we are relatively affordable, but the cost of living here is tremendous. And so I think that's something we really ought to be looking at as increasing the number of competitive slots. These are the students that we're trying to focus on. You go back to your PIPIC research, it says that filling the jobs of the 21st century, we have a shortage of 1 million graduates by 2025, and these are the people that we need to make sure that have a seat at a college or university in California. So this is one of the top priorities, I believe, for our budget this year. Mr. Chavez.
Well, I was just going to make a comment and thank you, Ms. Fuentes, for bringing up the issue of 4 years versus 5 years. I assumed the charts that we were given by the Public Policy Institute as far as or I guess it was the Public Policy Institute, it's the Institute for College Access and Success, on what does it cost to go to college, assuming a 4-year degree?
Those are single-year costs.
Single-year costs, so they would go out for the other year. And what also you don't include in there is when you actually get out of college, you start getting a job, so it's lost income that you receive, so it's even a greater impact. So I'm glad you bring that out for the value of the not-for-profits. So we start looking at Cal Grant and opportunities for everybody. Because the end result is we want people to get a good education, get a job, and go forward. And so how do we script this to make this thing happen? So I'm really happy to this. By the way, the bill that we're talking about, the increasing it out to $100,000 over 4 years, I think it was unanimous. It was bipartisan support of everybody recognizing that we have to do this. And the only last comment is, you look at this, a lot of us sit in all these different committees. I sit on health and the education. And it doesn't matter if it's dental for children, Medi-Cal, Cal Grants. What strikes me so much is that as the 7th largest economy in the world, we have a third of California's population at poverty level. That's a family for 24,000. So it's clear to me that the biggest, whenever he says the economy's back, if some way we get the jobs, people working, then they can send their kids to St. Mary's and great things will happen. So I'm glad we had this, and I'm sure everybody's really, I've never met an assembly member that wasn't supportive of education.
Mr. Ting? Okay, this item was for information and certainly helpful to us as we grapple with coming together with our budget before we finalize in May. And you will give us the additional information and data. So no action item here. And with that now, we will proceed to public comment. So we're going to line up over here on the side. Can you please form a line over there?
Great.
So we'll try to do 1 minute per individual if we could. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. I'm Liz Guillen with Public Advocates, and I'd like to support the really great information that was shared by the panelists in the last panel. We are one of the organizations that signed on to the letter of support for the bill that was heard yesterday, AB 200, and so appreciate your leadership in building support for that. I want to say particularly that increasing the Cal Grant B award will help the vast majority of African American and Latino low-income students who attend college in California. And that, of course, is something we support. We feel that they will be contributing to the workforce quicker if they can get through school quicker. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon or evening, whatever it is. Linda Liu with Young Invincibles, and I just want to echo the comments of my colleagues at Public Advocates and TICAS and say that Young Invincibles is an organization that works for economic opportunities for young people, and we think that education is a really key component to helping young people reach economic sustainability, and yet the challenges are the greatest for the young people that need it the most. And so we really are hopeful that we can achieve an increase in the competitive Cal Grants program so that, the young people that we work with, young people of color, first generation college students can have access to education and contribute more to the economy. And if you have some more money left. We're grateful for the last year's increase in the Cal Grant B award, but we recognize that that amount of money is really not enough to support books, living expenses, and all the other things that today's students need to be able to complete their education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kristen Soares. I'm the president of AICCU. AICCU is the representative voice for the California's private nonprofit sector. We have 75 members. We educate approximately 184,000 undergraduate students. Of those, 28,000 are Cal Grant students, and I want to thank you for your support for those students. They are California students. I am here to ask you to repeal the over 11% cut for the maximum award that's in this year's budget. We appreciate your support of repealing that last year. That's an over $1,000 cut to a student who is very needy. We appreciate the discussion that took place this afternoon about unmet need. This clearly falls within this category. The Cal Grant Award today, if that cut were to go through, would bring it back to, I think, the late 1990s. It is a devastating impact, and it really impacts the ability of these students to access a higher education in California. Of the 75 schools, they're in 75 communities. Over 65% of these students are first generation and represent untraditional students. They really are our future, and many of them want to access an education that's near their home. We look at this as a partnership. We look to working with you on a long-term solution for the Cal Grant Awards so that we can continue to serve these students, keep them in California, and give them access to a higher education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Poncardis, and I am attending the University of the Pacific as a freshman psychology student. And through the help of the Cal Grants, I was I was able to attend UOP, or University of the Pacific, coming from a migrant family with only a single father to help the only child. it was pretty hard, or attending a higher education was out of the question for me, or even attending the University of the Pacific, because of how financially we were barely able to make it just above the poverty line throughout elementary and throughout high school. And throughout high school, while I was taking community college courses with high school and comparing it to my education that I'm receiving now at University of the Pacific, I'm truly grateful for being awarded the Cal Grant, because with it, I feel that there is a difference with this because of how the quality of teaching is much different. Thank you for your time.
My name is Anayeli Morales, a senior studying business administration at the University of the Pacific. I came from a high school that had a dropout rate higher than the national average, and 87% of the students come from a low-income background. It was not expected for me to go straight to a four-year university. If I did, I was expected to fail. Instead, I challenged myself, and in less than 50 days, I will graduate from Pacific. As a first-generation student with a low-income background and from an underrepresented minority, this would not have been possible without the Cal Grant. Cal Grant provided the financial assistance for me to be able to attend a private nonprofit university, a university where I knew I would be able to succeed with the small classes and their business school that helped develop my leadership skills. I have been able to give back and make a difference in my community because of the support I got from Cal Grant. I would like to take this time to appreciate your time and your support of the investment in my future.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members. Janet Lopez, representing the University of Southern California. You know, we firmly believe at USC that poverty follows you whether you go to USC or UCLA. This last year, we had 2,400 Cal Grant students. 60% of our Cal Grant students came from families who make less than $40,000 a year. And so the requests that AICCU made in urging the Assembly to repeal the cut that's being proposed for this upcoming year, we strongly support that request and want to thank the Assembly for their leadership on this issue this previous year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Erica Romero on behalf of the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. We want to thank the governor for including the financial aid awareness money. The Tomas Rivera Policy Institute had done a study on usage of grants, and it turns out that only 30% of Latinos used a grant, despite the fact that our average family income is $29,000. So we need to do a better job of raising awareness. We were actually asked, how do you say grant in Spanish? And the room went quiet because the concept doesn't actually exist. While there are scholarships, there are no actual grants. And so if you think explaining the FAFSA to somebody who is a US-born citizen who speaks fluent English is hard, try explaining it to somebody whose parents are an immigrant and whose first language isn't English. So we really need to do more to outreach to families about financial aid. In addition, we do support increasing the number of competitive Cal Grants, as well as repealing the 11% cut to students attending the not-for-profit sector. The institutions that serve Latino students that are in the independent sector are the small institutions, and they do a good job of graduating students. A student's financial means should determine which university best suits them, and so we support financial aid for those students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Angela Minifield from Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science. I'd like to urge the Budget Subcommittee to repeal the 11.3% cut to the Cal Grant maximum award for students who wish to attend a private nonprofit institution. These institutions, like ours, create pathways of opportunity for historically underrepresented students in higher education. They also allow them to choose a college environment that is nurturing and best meets their academic and personal needs. We feel that the 11.3% cut would cause be a further threat and serve as a disincentive to low-income students, and therefore ask that you consider repeal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair McCarty, Assembly members. My name is Sean Carafin. I am the Executive Director of Policy and Economic Research for the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. The San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce has over 3,000 members representing 400,000 employees, so we are a large chamber. It's a pleasure to be here in person. We sincerely appreciate the legislature reinstating the 11% cut to the Cal Grants awards for incoming students of private nonprofit colleges and universities as proposed in the governor's earlier budget. And we respectfully urge the subcommittee to support repealing the 11% cut proposed in the current draft budget. It's important to remember that these cuts come after and on top of the over 6% cuts that happened in 2012 and 13. So this is a substantial cut, and frankly, it would be really unfortunate because Cal Grants give low-income students, many of it's their first opportunity to go to college, the first one in their families to go to college. It provides them with a pathway through higher education to the middle class. And from the Chamber's perspective, we really need that educated workforce. So we really need to make sure that we don't take a step back here. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brittany Bieber. I'm with California Competes, Higher Education for a Strong Economy. We're an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit project aimed at bolstering post-secondary outcomes in the state. A couple of years ago, California Competes released a report demonstrating that if current trends continue, we're going to be short 2.3 million degrees in 2025. We're here today because we understand that in order for California to reach the number of degrees needed, it's necessary to make higher education accessible and affordable for our neediest students. The Cal Grant program is instrumental in closing the achievement gap and increasing BA attainment. We urge you to strengthen the Cal Grant program through the state budget by increasing the number of annually authorized competitive Cal Grants and continuing to increase the size of the Cal Grant B Access Award. This will help the lowest income students not only get to, but get through college successfully. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jill Monroe with Point Loma Nazarene University. We're a private nonprofit university located in San Diego, California. We're serving about 3,500 graduate and undergraduate students. For the reasons discussed throughout your entire committee hearing this afternoon and evening, I would also echo the calls to repeal the governor's proposed 11% reduction to students choosing to attend a private nonprofit institution. The Cal Grant is an award that goes to students, not universities, and to limit a student's choice and access is extremely damaging to their future, the future of this state, as we've discussed here. I'll keep my comments brief and just once again thank you for your support last year in reinstating the proposed cut, and again we encourage and respectfully request your support this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Allison DeLuca. I'm with the Southern California College Access Network. We're an alliance of more than 60 community-based programs in the LA area that are working to increase the number of low-income students that go to and through college. As a network of direct service providers, we work day in and day out with low-income students to ensure that they're availing of the federal and state and private dollars that are available to them to make their college dreams possible. As a result, we typically don't get involved in policy advocacy work, but we feel so passionately about the fact that low-income students really do need a fighting chance at their education by receiving appropriate aid. We strongly encourage you to continue to strengthen the Cal Grants program and greatly appreciate the opportunity to provide public comment.
Thank you.
Ryan McElhaney with the Community College League of California. California community college students are only eligible for the access portion of the Cal Grant B award, creating a situation where while over 2/3 of students in a higher education institution is at a California community college, they receive less than 10% of the amount of money awarded via the Cal Grant program. So we strongly urge any effort to increase the Cal Grant B award, either increasing the number of competitive grants or the access portion. Thank you.
And to close us out, my name is Meredith Turner, and I'm here on behalf of the 447,000 students of the Cal State University system. First, I want to say thank you to this committee for your efforts last year to increase the Cal Grant B, and then echo the sentiments of many of our coalition members to increase the Cal Grant competitive award this year. Thanks so much.
Thank you. One more.
Good afternoon. I'm Stacy McAfee with University of the Pacific, and I thank you for your work on this committee and your support for access for students and young people in our community. I would ask you to consider the important role that public nonprofit institutions provide for our state. In particular, if you think about an institution like University of the Pacific, over half of our undergraduate students live off campus. Part of the reason for that is it provides affordability for them to pursue an education, and were it not possible for them to do so locally within the four-county region, they probably would not have the opportunity to explore that education. In addition to that, we're providing mentorship and support for first-generation, very diverse student body, and we look forward to joining the efforts in the state of California to move our young people and our economy forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just to note this, I know there's a lot of issues addressed here, but the one overarching issue in public comment was on the private nonprofits and the Cal Grant Award. This wasn't agendized, but it should be noted this is on our potential to look at issue in May, so we'll be making sure we address this down the road. So thank you again for attending today, and this hearing's adjourned.